Right, so I'm selling these two together as a job lot. This is an Rm125 from 1978, and this is an Rs175. I can't see the date, but I think it's 1979 or 1980. Neither of them are runners, and I'm not going to give any guarantees to the mechanical components. I'm selling them together as a job lot, because if you're going to send a shipping company out to pick up one, then on average that's going to cost you about $400, so you might get a deal for two. Because they're close in age, a lot of the parts are interchangeable, so you might want to make one really good bike out of the two. So I'm selling them to be, I think they need full rebuilds. This one, it isn't seized up, but there's no compression at all. I don't even know whether there's a piston in there, but it certainly doesn't seem as if there's any rings in there, that's for sure. That's all I know about that engine. So the bolts are off of the nuts are off the bottom of the barrel, so that's been off at some stage, and the rubber's missing from the carburetor. This one, it's not completely seized. The piston will go, you can turn the crank in either direction a certain amount of degrees, and then it stops and locks, like there's a restriction in there. The clutch side of this is stripped down. I'll come and get the right on the clutch side, it's stripped down because I think the selector, which is out, there you go, looks like it's rounded on the end there, so I guess they were going to change that. There's the casing, and there's a repair to the casing. It looks a bit beat up, so I think it needs a new casing as well. I'm sure you can find that on eBay. Obviously the rear fender's missing. The tyre's bald. Seat looked like it could be recovered and go again. Same with the tank. I mean, it looks like that could probably go again. The forks look pretty nice. I'm not sure. I would imagine you're going to have to put new seals. I say no guarantees whatsoever. Just assume the worst, and assume that you've got to do a full rebuild, and maybe you'll be pleasantly surprised. So this is the 175. Same again, forks look all right, but you know, assume the worst, assume you're going to have to rebuild those. Seat is shot, so new seat cover and foam probably. Oh, I don't know. You might be able to get away with that foam. So this side, as I said, no restriction there at all. So I don't know whether there's no rings in there or what have you. But this is a pretty unusual model. Possibly because it's hideous looking. I think the PE was much nicer with a little round light and the guard. I mean, you could obviously you could retro that if you wanted to. And a lot of the parts are interchangeable, so I mean, you could take the magneto with the lighting coil out of that one, stick it in the RM, so you've got the option of lights. Because I think the RM is a far more desirable bike because of its pedigree and history and all the races that they won. And if you look on NADA, I think they've even sold for up to like 5,000 for this year. So some good projects. But there you go. So that's what I'm saying, you know, assume the worst, full rebuilds on both of them. I don't know any of the mechanical condition. I've got too many projects. A nice project has just turned up that I really want, so I'm going to get rid of some of my inventory and pick that up. But so I'm going to let them go cheap. I got them pretty cheap. Bought them from a guy in Nebraska. Had them in his shed outside. Been there for many years. He wanted to make some room. He let me have them pretty reasonably. So I'm going to pass them on pretty quickly in that same kind of vein. All right, well, and the other thing is, if you want to get transport to pick them up, there's no hurry to pick them up. I will keep them inside, dry and warm. That way you should be able to get a good quote, because you haven't got to nail a guy down to a certain date or time. And I work from home, so most days are available. So yeah, so you should get a good deal on 2 bikes. Maybe you'll just get like $4.50 for a pair, you know, to transport them across the country. But all right, well, thanks for looking. And as I say, assume the worst, and don't blame me if there's more in there that's going to cost to do than looks like on the outside, because the last thing I want is negative feedback, because I don't have that much history, and I want to make a go of it. All right, well, thanks very much. Goodbye.